The war was over, the demons had won, and everything was now dead silent. The hotel was destroyed, and nothing was left, and with Alastor's staff broken, it also meant that his powers were no longer in use. And the great deal of pain that he was in, all thanks to Adam. The poor radio demon slowly ejected himself to Cannibal Town, leaving a trail of black blood behind him. He had to find his friend Rosie quickly. When he got to her house, he knocked on her door as best as he could with what little strength he had left. Luckily, she was home, staying safe from the angels. When she opened the door, the Victorian demon was horrified to see her friend in such a horrible shape.
My goodness, Alastor! Get inside quickly! What did you do?
After cleaning his wounds and stitching him up, Rosie set up the guest room for him to stay in for recovery.
Now, darling, you'll stay here until you get back on your feet. If you need anything, let me know.
Oh dear, that won't be necessary.
Nonsense! What are friends for? Now get some sleep.
As she turned off the lights and shut the door, all Alastor could do was sit in bed alone with his thoughts. He wasn't really tired, especially with the pain he was in, so he started to wonder if his friends were okay. Did anyone make it out alive? And hope that things could be handled with him being gone. That night, as the radio demon was sleeping, he woke up to someone calling his name. As he looked to see who it was, he was shocked to see that it was Vox, sitting in a chair in the corner of the room with an evil grin on his TV screen face. Alastor was confused about what was going on. How did Vox get there? How long had he been sitting there? Before he could call for Rosie, the TV demon spoke.
Well. It looks like the all-powerful radio demon does have a weakness. One moment you're on top of the world in hell, and now you're crying like a little baby wanting your mommy.
For your information, my staff broke. I was winning until, in the blink of an eye, he pulled that stunt.
Is that what you want to believe? Or could it be that you're just a deer in headlights?
Oh, shut up. You're one to talk. You died lying on the floor, and one of your televisions fell on your face.
Yeah, well, at least my invention made a difference in the world than a radio ever did.
Just before Alastor could reply back, the door opened and there stood Rosie, looking concerned.
Alastor, are you okay? I can hear you all the way down the hall.
Yes, and I'm fine. And you mind telling me why Vox is here at this hour of the night?
He said as he pointed to the corner. Surprisingly, there was no one there. Just an empty chair. Seeing this, his friends started to become more concerned, and Alastor was left dumbfounded.
Sweetheart, are you okay?
The demon sat there, frozen, not understanding what was happening. But he still couldn't let Rosie think that he went off the deep end.
Yes. It must have been a nightmare. Sorry.
With that response, she knew that something was up. But she also knew how stubborn her friend would be when she would suggest getting a checkup at the doctor's. So she brushed it off and hoped that he would be better in the morning. Meanwhile, Alastor thought about what had just happened. His enemy was sitting right in front of him. It felt real. It sounded real. Maybe it was just a dream. The next day, Alastor kept pushing himself to help out around the house, even though he knew that he should be resting. Rosie was pretty much acting like a mother to him, by telling him 100 times to stay in bed. But of course, there was always an excuse for him to stay. Like how he wanted some tea, or how he just wanted to find a good book to read. So to make him finally stay put, she made a teapot full of his favorite drink and gave him a pile of books to keep him entertained. He was grateful that she did all of that for him, but still, he just hated being stuck in bed. A few weeks passed by, and Alastor was starting to feel much better. His wound was all healed up, and his staff was now fixed. He was ready to take on the town. But after he got dressed and went for a walk, the demon saw something that he couldn't believe. Vox had told everyone in hell to grab any radio they could find and have them destroyed. big bonfire was built, and all the radios were nothing but dust. Alastor started to panic. Seeing this made his chest hurt. No more broadcasting. No more control of his victims. It was all gone. Gone forever. But then, out of nowhere, he snapped out of it, realizing that he was still in bed, and that his injury hadn't fully healed. Again, he didn't understand what just happened. Was it another nightmare, or an odd form of daydreaming? Then Vox appeared again, standing in the door with that evil grin of his.
Now this is what I like to see. The radio demon finally losing his marbles.
Alastor grew angry. He just wanted to know what was going on, not be mocked. But the TV demon just kept rubbing it in more.
Tell me, Al, when you were getting ready for the day, were you happen to be using the bathroom?
With a question like that, Alastor's face went red from humiliation. He was from a time where people didn't discuss such things, but with Al's silence, it seemed that Vox got his answer.
I could tell you did. And with hallucinations like that, it means you wet the bed.
The radio demon's eyes grew wide. He quickly looked under his blanket and saw that there was a puddle in his bed. This was getting crazy. What was going on? Then he remembered what Vox had said about him having hallucinations. Yes, it made so much sense now. But the question was, how could he tell what was real and what wasn't? That afternoon, when Rosie came home from work, she found her friend acting odd. He was grabbing items and looking at them strangely, staring at walls and talking to picture frames. She knew that he needed help.
Alastor, dear, what are you doing?
Oh, Rosie, I didn't see you there. I'm doing just fine. Just testing something.
Testing what?
Oh, nothing much. Just seeing if anything is out of place.
He explained, but Rosie was starting to grow more concerned. And to make matters worse, she noticed blood dripping down from his shirt. Alastor had ending up popping his stitches, which meant that Rosie had to once again put her foot down and take care of his wound and try to make him stay in bed. That night, the radio demon couldn't sleep. It was all too much. The fact that he was in this twilight zone and how he couldn't control it was making him go crazy. Then suddenly, a ray of light appeared through the window, making him jump. He was unsure of what was happening, until an angel faded into the room. But it wasn't just any angel, it was his mother.
Hello, baby.
Alastor's jaw dropped, his eyes filled with tears. He didn't think that he would ever see her again. He couldn't move, he couldn't speak, he just sat there in disbelief.
Now, Alastor, is that any way to greet your mother? Speak, boy.
Mama? Is it really you?
Of course, baby. Everything is going to be okay from now on.
After all of those years without her, both alive and dead, he thought that he wouldn't ever see her again, but his prayers were finally answered, which made him happy, but then something changed.
But, Alastor, until then, do you mind telling me what in heaven's sake you were thinking? Why did you not only kill those people, but also do all of those other unspeakable things? I raised you better than that. You knew better. You were a good boy. What happened?
As his mother continued with her rant, the radio demon started to panic. His tears of joy turned into tears of sadness. He loved his mother to death, and he hated to disappoint her. But the way that she was yelling at him made him want to die again. This heartbreak hurt more than his physical wounds. Then suddenly, Alastor woke up, breathing heavily. He didn't know what was going on until I hit him again. That had been another hallucination, which was the final straw for him. Vox is one thing, but his mother, that was crossing the line. The next day, when Rosie was at work again, not only did Alastor get out of bed, but he also got out of the house and headed to the hotel, hoping that maybe Charlie had a spell or something to help him. He couldn't live like this anymore. As he opened the door, Alastor hoped to get a warm welcome, but instead he froze in horror, because what he saw couldn't be true. Vox was in the lobby asking for an interview of Alastor's whereabouts for tonight's news broadcast. When the radio demon saw this, he knew that this had to be another trick with his mind. His enemy wouldn't dare do something like this. As Alastor walked up to him, he slammed the TV demon up against the wall. Everyone was shocked, not only by seeing their friend back, but also by what he was doing.
Ow! What are you doing? You're hurting me!
Oh. You think I'm going to fall for this trickery again? I know that once I deal with you, I'll be back in bed very soon.
They all stood there, not sure what was going on, and lost on what to do. But as Alastor started digging his claws into Vox's chest, he screamed in pain for him to stop. That was when the gang stepped in, trying to hold their friend back and begging for him to stop. But he didn't. His claws dug in deeper. Charlie freaked out, yelling at anyone to get Rosie, which Nifty was glad to do, running as fast as her little legs could carry her. Everyone pleaded for Alastor to stop, but he was zoned out, still believing that this was another hallucination. Vox was scared, crying and screaming and trying to push him away. But it was no use. Alastor's foaming at the mouth, and his overloaded form started to grow. His claws started to break the skin and wrap around Vox's heart. Time was running out. Everyone was freaking out, seeing all the blood pouring out of Vox's wound and over Alastor's hand in his chest. But just as Nifty ran in with Rosie, it was too late. There was a wet, dripping sound, and Vox, with what little life he had left, was horrified to see Alastor holding his heart in his hand. The TV demon then fell down to the floor, dead. Alastor stood there with that big evil smile that he had, knowing that at any moment he was going to be back in bed. But instead, he just stood there, realizing that something was off. The heart pounding, the blood dripping, it all felt real, including the emotions that he was getting from everyone staring at him in shock, including Rosie. Right then and there, Alastor knew that this wasn't another hallucination. This was real, and he had just messed up big time.